Okay, hi everybody. It's Daryl again, and today I'm going to show you my new app that I've been working on. So I'll just show you what it looks like kind of in the App Store. So if you go to the App Store on your iPhone or your iPad, you can find this app. So it's called EV Range Calculator, and it says for buying decisions and costs. So what my app does is that if you're considering buying an electric car, it allows you to put data into the app and it will then tell you in English, in sentences, how far the car will go and how you can charge it and how long it will take and things like that. Um, so I'll just show you what the app looks like in Simulator because that will be the easier way to deal with it. So here's a version of the app that I prepared earlier. I'll just point out it has 3 tabs down the bottom. And I just put some background information about electric cars in here. So if you scroll through this, it will tell you a bit about how electric cars charge and a bit of information like that. It's hard to find good information sometimes. And over here I've got an instructions tab, and mostly this tells you what the different fields mean. So that you can make some sense of how it works. Some of the stuff's very straightforward, whereas some of it is a little bit, it's not obvious if you don't know much about electric cars, you're just not going to know anything about it. So if we look at the calculator, just by the way, if you're curious, I'm using an iPhone simulator. So if you write apps for an iPhone, you can have an iPhone simulator where you can simulate all the different kinds of devices. So I've got a couple of iPads and an iPhone, and so if you want to see how the app looks on different devices, you can simulate it in here. So anyway, I'll just go through how you use the app. So a lot of people that are buying a used car are buying a Nissan Leaf, and Nissan Leafs normally have a 24 kilowatt hour battery. So kilowatt hours is the same as the units on your power bill. I presume most countries around the world will use the same kind of units. So you can go on your power bill and see how much your household usage is. My house is small and pretty efficient, so I'm using about 16 kilowatt hours per day just for my house. And if I charge my car to drive into the city and back, 100k round trip, I'll use, I don't know, something like 16 kilowatts. So that my electric car, if I drive 100 kilometers per day, basically doubles my power bill. Anyway, so if you've got a Nissan Leaf, that's the most popular car in New Zealand that people would buy used. But if you've got any other car, say you just bought a new Tesla, and the Tesla has a 75 kilowatt hour battery, you can type that in there. So maybe I'll just put I'm going to put 40 because that's the 2018 Nissan Leaf. That's a car that people might be considering buying new now. So if you're buying a new car, you have this thing called battery state of health. So every electric car, as you slowly wear out the car, the battery is one of the main things that wears. So if you have a brand new car, the state of health is going to be 100%. But if you want to be cautious, you can put 95%. If you're buying a used car, the Nissan cars have a little bar graph on the right hand side. I should have prepared an image. Maybe I'll paste one in so you can see what it looks like. The bar graph is to the right hand side of how full the battery is, the graph for that, and the bars have 2 red bars at the bottom and up to 10 white bars, and so 2 reds plus the number of white ones gives you the number of bars. So any new Nissan Leaf is just going to have 12 bars. If it's only 1 or 2 years old, it's still going to have 12 bars. And depending on the wear and usage and temperature and charging behavior, it can be all over the place. The worst I've ever seen is about 8 bars in real life. I might have seen a 7-bar car one time, but it's pretty uncommon. But if you've got a brand new car, it's going to be 100%. So let's just put in 100%. And In my country, we use kilometers. If you're in the UK or United States, you might use miles. I think there's one or two other countries in the world that might use miles, but I'm going to put in kilometers and put in my daily driving distance. So because I live in the suburbs and the center of the city is 50 kilometers away, if I take a trip into the city for whatever reason, then I might put 105 kilometers just to be on the safe side. Normally I can do it basically exactly in 100 k's. 105, that's a good number. The power price per kilowatt hour. In my power bill, if I pay my power early, I actually get a discount rate. So I get 15% off if I pay my power bill on time. If you pay your power bill late, then you have to pay more. So my power can be as cheap as 19 cents per kilowatt hour. So let's put that in. You can look for that on your power bill. It should have some kind of unit price. And sometimes people have day rates and night rates, and it's complicated, but you can aggregate it. So I'm going to put in 19 cents, sorry, 0.19, there we go. And charge, EVSE charge rate. So when you get an electric car, it should come with a charging cable so you can plug it in at home. Sometimes people get a thing which is usually called a wall box. So EVSE is electric vehicle something equipment. EVSE? I don't know. Electric vehicle, I've forgotten. I normally know it. Electric vehicle supply equipment. So this is the power supply where you plug your car in at home. So in New Zealand we have 230 volt power outlets, and most people just have a regular 230 volt outlet in the garage. So if you live in the United States or Japan, quite often there's a 200 volt or something, 220 or something like that volt output in your laundry or in your garage to plug your clothes dryer into, because clothes dryers need quite a lot of energy, so you use a transformer out on the pole outside your house. Give me a second. So there's a transformer out on the pole that produces the 200 volts as opposed to your normal 100, 115, 120 volts, whatever it is. Seems to be variances, or just not that familiar. 115 volts in America, I think, is the normal amount in North American countries. So the thing is that to get your charging power, you multiply your volts times your amps. So a normal plug-in charger in New Zealand is 1.8 kilowatts, and that would be about 800. How is it? It's 8 amps. So I suppose I can do calculator. Let's start with calculator. Calculator. There we go. Great. I'll just put this in here. So if you got 230 volts and you multiply that by 8, you'll get 1,840, so approximately 1.8 kilowatts. If you got 120 volts and you've got a 6 amp charger, so times 6, and that will give you 720. So in that case, you would type in here 0.72, something like that. And if you've got let's say it's 115 volts, and your thing is I don't know, maybe it's 15 amps. Whoops, how do I clear that? 115 times 15 amps. Get similar rate to the New Zealand one, and you've got 200 volts because you've got a Japanese electric car charger, and it's times 16 amps, I think, as well. So we'll just times that, say 15 amps, and you've got 3 kilowatts. So you can work out this number for this. So if it works out to 3,000 like it did there, then what you want to put in is 3. because that's the number I calculated here is in watts, but this is kilowatts, so divided by 1,000. So my charger, I've got a 16 amp charger in a special kind of 230 volt connector. So my one is actually 3.5 kilowatts. And speed. Okay, this number is quite an arbitrary scale, but urban, so you put a number here. So what have I got? It says intended driving style. It says 6.5 for freeway. Say you live in Germany and you're on the autobahn, put 7. You might go 7.5, but this number gets, the scale gets very crazy. So 7.5 is like the equivalent of driving 135 kilometers per hour, about 80, 90 miles or something like that. That's quite crazy. For New Zealand driving, whereas my mixed commute is, so if I drove into Wellington City, I would be about, some of it is motorway, so I'd be at 100 kilometers per hour. Some of it's at 50 kilometers per hour because you have to go through some sort of suburban patches, and some of it, there's a lot of roadworks at the moment because they're building a new motorway into Wellington, and there's construction going on, and the speed limit's a little bit lower than normal. So mixed commute, I'm just putting 4. So if you're in New Zealand or Australia, probably Australia, you'd put, say, 5.5 if you were taking a journey to another city on a normal highway. And, 4.5 if you're just sustaining, 5 if you're sustaining 100 kilometers per hour, maybe 5.5 if you go a bit higher. If you put a number that's slightly higher than what you want, that will give you a safer number. But I've scaled this on my mixed commute. Add a bit more if you're towing a trailer. If you're just towing a little trailer, like you've got some garden supplies at the hardware store, and you're just driving in your suburb at maybe up to 70 kilometers per hour towing a trailer, put on just 0.5 or 1. If you're towing a trailer home, maybe put on 1.5 or 2. Got that kind of scale. And efficiency. Efficiency you can read from the dash in a car. And I've got an explanation in the instructions. I have an explanation here, which hopefully somewhere in here I put something about efficiency. Efficiency is pretty interesting. So I put some worked examples here, because some cars show watts per kilometer and other cars show kilometers per kilowatt hour, which is a little, and one is 1 divided by the other. So I just showed how to do the calculation here. So I'll just go back to this other tab. In the efficiency, if you're just driving, 80, 90 kilometers per hour, most people in a Nissan Leaf achieve 6, and this equivalency is about the same as 4 in miles per hour. So this is a number where in miles per hour and in kilometers per hour it's dependent on your units. So if you're if back in where we put in the units up here, if you put miles, then just put in MI, and it will give you miles, and your efficiencies would be different. So if you're driving about 60 miles per hour, about equivalent to 100 kilometers per hour, then that number turns out to be 4. But I'm using kilometers, so I'm going to use 6. When I actually drive in a Nissan Leaf, if I just try to drive real smoothly, I can get 7. Like at the moment, my car, its average is about 7.4. I haven't been going anywhere in a rush recently, but I'm going to put 6.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour, and that will give me a good number. So this is a 40 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf with a brand new battery. So click calculate, and it produces this result. So battery size of 40 kilowatts, approximate usable battery is 38 kilowatt hours. So most electric cars have a little bit of head space. So in the app, I've got it to subtract a couple of kilowatts out, so that you can't, the car won't let you drive until the battery is actually totally flat. It will stop moving to protect the cells. It always wants to leave a little bit of power in the battery. Time from empty to a full charge at 3.5 kilowatt hours is 10.9 hours. So if I bought a 40 kilowatt hour Leaf and I got it home and it was totally flat, I could charge it in about 11 hours, which is pretty convenient. So, but here's the thing. So time to charge after daily driving, 4.6 hours, and the cost of daily driving range is $3.07, and a full charge. So if the car was totally empty, at my power price, it would cost $7.22 to recharge. So I can get my daily commuting on about $3 a day. So that's pretty good. Estimated range on a full charge up to 247 kilometers. So, and oh yes, in fine temperate weather. So when the weather's not good, you always use more power. So this is just something that you have to be aware of. In here, next I've got, should I buy this car for my commute? And I've got a disclaimer because this is one of these problems. You provide people with advice, and the advice isn't, isn't what they want, or they don't get the results that I would expect. Then this has got to be in here. So this is for guidance only, and it may not be accurate. Ignore this advice if your commute distance is very short. Oh, that's a very good point. Because if you've got a car that's got very small battery range, there's a lot of things that are impractical about that. But if you only use it to drive 2 minutes down the road to go to the shops, or to drive to the train station each morning before you go to work, and then drive it back home from the train station, then a lot of this battery stuff just isn't important, because you're never driving very long ranges. So on a full charge, you'll always have plenty for your daily use. Now the interesting thing is, seek other advice before making any purchase decision. Okay, so 50% or more of battery left after the commute, and then I've got recommended buy. So what I've done is I've made the app to tell you whether this car will work for you or not. And I think that's helpful for people. So you might get 190 kilometers or 118 miles between DC rapid charges. Okay, so at that speed and efficiency that I chose. So this is important, because even though the fully charged range of the car is about almost 250 kilometers, because you can't run it totally flat, and it's hard to charge it to totally full if you're rapid charging, then the pragmatic charging distance is about 190 k's. That's my approximation. And yeah, that's, I think that's fair. And then I've just got that same number in miles per hour. And so what you need to do is you need to check in your country where charging stations are. And there's a few different ways of doing that. There's some good apps like PlugShare in New Zealand. There's the ChargeNet app, which shows you where all the paid charging stations are. And there's things like a Better Route Planner. Those can show you where the charging stations are, so you can use those methods to find out whether there's charging stations in the places that you intend to drive, because it's really important, especially for Australians. Like in Australia, the charging network of DC chargers at the moment, they're quite far apart. A lot of them are much further than 100 kilometers per charging station, and I own a 30 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf. So if I go back and put on my battery size, so I've got a 30, and I know that my state of health is about 90 last time I checked it. So if I do this calculation, so you can see estimated range on a full charge up to 163. Now that I can often get 100 and near 180 k's out of my car on a full charge, um, but I've made this quite it's a little conservative. Um, yeah, so in this car, so the car I own under my driving conditions that I experience all the time, it says that 30 to 40% of the battery is left after the commute. So got it recommended, but may only work for a few years of commutes. So, if the car that I've got now, it looks like it will work for me for a few years under my own calculations. But then I might get to that point if my battery starts wearing down a bit and I want to do that 105 k's a day. I'll, at the moment I've got 60 odd k's spare, and that's fine. That works for me. But in this guidance, it says mainly work for a few years of commutes. And of course, weather matters. So if I get bad weather, that's going to be important. So let's just say I intend to drive 135 kilometers per day and do the calculation. Calculate. So I get 10% to 20% of the battery left after commute. Don't buy for commute. So there you go. So that's pretty good. So might get 126 kilometers between DC charges, and could get up to 163 k's, but because I set my commute to 135 kilometers, it's not a comfortable, 30 kilometers is not a comfortable margin. And a lot of the Nissan Leafs, around 25, 30 kilometers remaining, you'll get the, hey, your battery's running low, find a charger, which means that you would, if you bought this car every day I drove to work, I would be running low. Anyway, so that's how my app works. I hope that's helpful for you. I'll just give you a few other really different things. Like, say you're looking at buying a Tesla 85 kilowatt hour car. So we put 85 in here, and some of the early Teslas, I think maybe was it 60 kilowatt hours, the earliest Tesla with a quite big battery. And let's just say that the state of health is, we'll just say it's 80% because the car's a little bit old, and I want to use it for my 105 kilometer commute. And this sort of other information will stay the same, but it's a fancy car, so I might drive a little bit faster. So let's just go 4.5, 4.5. 4.5, there we go. All these numbers are fractional. You can put in decimals and click calculate. Oh, hang on. I think that it wouldn't be as efficient, so I'm going to put, let's put 6.0. Calculate, there we go. So I got a 60 kilowatt hour battery size. Usable battery is 46. Recharges in 13 hours on my type of charger. It would cost, something's a little bit odd there. 47 cents. That can't be right. What did I do wrong? Sorry, I missed the zero. 105 kilometers. Calculate. So yeah, cost to drive daily range $3.33. A full charge of the battery was totally flat, $8.80 charging at home. Remember that DC fast chargers, the charging price is radically different. So this is just, I've just made this for cost of home charging. Estimated range on a full charge up to 278 k's or 173 miles. And should I buy this car for my commute? Got 50% or more of battery left after the commute, recommended by. Yeah, here it tops out. It just says 50% or more left after after the commute, and I might get 206 k's between DC rapid charges. So there's kind of like a nice place where people sometimes go for holidays, holiday weekend away. A little bit up the road from where I live, about 350 k's away, is Taupo. It's a nice, alpine lake area, and I could drive there, but I would need to stop and charge the car halfway somewhere, which is good because there's tons of car chargers in New Zealand, so that would be very convenient. There's also a supercharger. How far away is the supercharger from where I live? About 100 k's away from where I live in Palmerston North, so I could drive up to there and use the supercharger and then go on the road, but I'd need to use one of the other chargers somewhere else as well. There's superchargers in Taupo too, which is handy. So yeah, you can use this for any kind of car. I don't know what the state of all cars are. Like, so some cars have some sort of ways of knowing the battery usage. You might be able to work out some rough idea of battery usage, but it tends to look as if maybe cars that have smaller batteries get a bit more battery wear. So in some cases, you just have to guess this, like if you don't know. But on the Nissan thing, the ones with the bars, they're quite cool. So if you're looking at a 24 kilowatt hour Nissan, real common car to buy in New Zealand, and the battery state of health you don't know, but you can see the bars. Sometimes you can see photos of the dash on online websites for buying cars. You might see that the car has 9 bars, and then you want to use it for your very normal 50 kilometer New Zealand commute, and it comes with just a standard plug-in wall charger, so we'll put that at 1.8, and mixed highway commute and very ordinary efficiency. Let's say winter driving efficiency. Let's say 5. Go calculate. And so this car would get, it would be able to do that regular 50 kilometer kind of Kiwi commute, 25 k's there, 25 k's back, be able to do that for $1.90, and this car would just get a full charge distance of almost 80 kilometers, and you might get 70 kilometers between DC fast chargers. So if you bought such a car, this car you would, because of the ranges between car chargers in New Zealand, if you live near a middle of a big city, there's going to be DC fast chargers conveniently at intervals much closer together. The fast chargers where I live are getting down to be 10, 15, and 25 kilometers apart. So you can easily get around the suburbs because I live near Wellington, the capital of New Zealand. So you can get around with that. But yeah, that's a pretty typical kind of a thing. And this is the same as if you're in America. About 30 miles or 31 miles is about 50 kilometers. And if we change that to miles and change that efficiency to 4, that's a kind of American kind of normal amount for a Leaf, I think. And click calculate. Oh yes, and also you might have a very low power charger, so let's just say 0.7. If you've got a plug-in wall charger, calculate. That plugs into 115 volt. So for such a 30-mile commute, it might cost you $2.37, and a full charge will take 22 hours. And what was the? I should have a time here. Oh yeah, time to charge after daily driving, 17.8 hours. So if you had a 115 volt charger, that wouldn't be much fun to do a 30-mile commute. Yeah. Yeah. So this one, 20 to 30% battery left after commute. Marginal buy recommendation: okay in fine weather, may need to charge away from home in bad weather. may need to replace the car sooner than as convenient. So that's a pretty weak buy. So if you're going to buy such a car with those stats for that type of commute in the United States, it just doesn't sound very much fun. Um, yeah. Anyway, hope that's helpful. That's an explanation of how my app works. Thanks for watching my YouTube video. It really helps me a lot if you subscribe to my YouTube channel if you find this information helpful. Of course, go into the App Store, download my app. Again, the apps, here's the logo, EV range calculator. Just type that in on your iPhone or iPad. The app doesn't need anything special. It works on what did I work out? Any modern iPhone with iPhone OS, I think 12 or 13. But I'm actually going to try and put a version into the store with that will support iOS version 9 devices, which is iPhone 5S and 5SE, 6 and 6 and 7. But it should work on 6, 7, 8. Oh yeah, and give me a rating on the app if you install the app. That'd be awesome. Thanks.